Hello, my name is Loven. In the last video I made, I talked about where you should be standing as a forward in Omega Strikers. Now that you know where to stand, you will find the core comes to you a bit more often, which is great. Unfortunately, you now need to know what to do with the core, because otherwise, standing in the right spot was for naught. So, when and where to strike the core is what we'll be talking about in today's video. As you watch, remember that growth comes from constant watering. Take the ideas from this video and try to implement one or two at a time and start thinking about your strikes in your future games. At the time of release, I am a Challenger Ai.Mi forward player. I've not been playing the game since beta like most of the high-ranking players, thus I recently had to learn everything I'm about to explain. Thank you to those of you who watched my first video and commented. The positivity was overwhelming and I was happy to see my content help the community. This video was made for educational purposes. I've hidden all player names because if I'm talking about someone other than myself, it is not to flame that person. They were just playing a game and having fun like we all should. I was queuing with some people while gathering footage. All of them consented to being recorded. All of the games were recorded in normals so that I could get a wide range of skill levels so that the footage shown might look similar to the games you play. Lastly, if you are interested in receiving free coaching in Omega Strikers from top players, join the coaching Discord that I've linked in the description below. There are 4 reasons to strike the core. Every time you strike the core, you are doing at least one of the following: shooting, dribbling, passing, or clearing. It is worth noting that you may be doing multiple of these at the same time. Most commonly, passing and clearing are done at the same time. This is most commonly done when goalies are trying to prevent the core from going into the goal and they pass it to a teammate, thus performing a clearing pass. To keep things simple, in this video we will talk about the 4 reasons individually. Striking the core to shoot is any time you intentionally send the core in the direction of either a lock or the goal with the intent of hitting or going in respectively. When doing so, you want to aim for space through the areas of influence of the opposing team. You rarely want to shoot it straight into someone, as that will stop working at higher levels of play. Developing good habits now will help you climb later. Passing is any time you strike the core to put it in a position for an ally to make a play on the core. This does not always mean that you send it directly to them. Sometimes just putting it in open space in front of the goal and hoping they hit it with an ability is a pass. Remember to always be looking for opportunities to pass. This is especially important when your abilities are on cooldown, as you should not be expecting to get past a goalie with just a strike. Clearing is any time you're striking the core with the purpose of getting away from opposing strikers. This is the type of striking that goalies aim to do. Being intentional with where you are sending the core while clearing is very important. Generally, if you clear it in the same direction it just came from, this will result in the core coming back and getting past you. When clearing, if you can do so in a way that is also a pass, that would be ideal. You can clear into open space just to get out of bad positions as needed. In this clip that I'm about to show, I want you to pay attention to how the Asher clears the core versus how the Kai clears the core. The Asher always clears the core into open space, and I think all of them in this clip are passes, away from enemies. The Kai always clears the core back into the enemies, and just notice how he gets scored on really easily because of that. I want you to pay attention to that, memorize this. Clearing towards teammates, away from enemies, good. Clearing back to enemies, bad. Dribbling is hitting the core in such a way to maintain control over it while either getting it around players or just moving it around the map. Dribbling is a more advanced form of striking that I wouldn't worry about learning if you're newer to the game. The idea behind dribbling is that you want the core to stay under your control, but you want it to move at the same speed as your striker. If you just hit the core, it'll move faster than your striker and you will lose control of the core. So by hitting the core towards a wall, you can continue to walk forward and meet up with the core in the new spot, where you can then hit the core again. A strike war occurs whenever 2 opposing strikers are within striking distance of a core. There's often a tense stare down before both players strike and then the core goes one of the 2 directions the players wanted. These can often feel random, but fun fact, they're not. In order to win a strike war, all you have to do is be the person who strikes last. Another way to win a strike war is to strike before the opposing player and then throw an ability at the core. Sure, they'll win the strike war, but then your ability will smash their hopes and dreams, sending the core in the direction you wanted instead. The timing with which you learn to strike the core is important. When you're newer to Omega Strikers, any time the core is near your striker, you probably instantly strike the core. As you become more experienced, you'll find many times where you have the core moving slowly and you're just taking it for a walk. How do you know when to strike the core in these spots? There are many reasons to delay the striking of the core. You could be wanting to stall the core because your team has striker disadvantage. You are waiting for a passing window to open up. You are waiting for your cooldowns to come up. You want to buy time for your goalie's cooldowns to come up. Or maybe you're waiting for an ability to pass or expire. While stalling the core, here are a couple things you should be thinking about. The first thing you want to think about is how much pressure are you under to hit the core? Is it going to go in your goal if you don't strike? Is an ability or a strike coming to hit the core? In cases where hitting the core is essential to keep it on the opponent's side of the map or out of the goal, just hitting it is the right play. So we made it past our first check of should we hit the core. We aren't under any pressure. What's the next thing to consider? Does either team have striker advantage? If someone on your team is KO'd, you're not under any pressure to hit the core, so don't. Stalling precious time for them to respawn is very beneficial for you and your team. If someone on the other team is KO'd, it's imperative to hit the core so that you don't waste time while your team has striker advantage. The next thing I consider when striking the core is who has recently used cooldowns. Most importantly, the goalies. If my goalie just used a bunch of cooldowns and I can stall for a little bit that would be helpful to them, and thus me, if the opposing goalie has recently burned cooldowns, it's time to strike the core and get moving. Of course, you should consider your own abilities as well. Maybe you can't score without your primary, so giving it extra time to come up is obviously useful. The final thing I consider is what is everyone else doing? If I see the enemy forwards are just beating up my other forward, that gives me a 1v1 with the goalie if I move the core now. Is everyone just standing around waiting to see what I'll do? Awesome, then I can just chill out and hold on to the core. While doing any form of stalling, it is important to not lose control of the core by holding on to it for too long. Pay attention to who may be trying to take the core away from you and how they are likely to go about doing it. General advice for where to strike the core is around the enemy's strike range. Most midfield engagements aren't going to involve abilities, as those are generally needed for scoring. Thus, just hitting the core around enemies is essential. However, it is not just about hitting around them. It's also putting it in a spot where yourself or someone else on your team can do something with it. Right now, we're going to play a game. I'm going to show you a still image from a game and I'll give you 5 seconds to guess where the core should be hit and why. After those 5 seconds, I'll explain where it should go and why. You get a point for each one correct. Can you get them all correct? Let's find out. As denoted by the green line here, the Kai should clear this core by hitting it upwards. Hitting it back to me is a mistake because of the glitch pop that is placed in front of him. That'll score. Hitting it towards the Dubu is a mistake because the Dubu will probably score. Hitting it towards the blob is a mistake because the Dubu can cut it off. So you want to hit it straight up into this bumper so that it can go out either to the blob, to your Atlas, or at least it'll give you time to reposition to make another defensive play. Here, in order for the Asher to clear, she really only has 2 options, one of which is clearly better than the other. She can pass it back down towards the Dubu, basically where it came from, who then, if they have abilities, can maybe get it past the Juno. Likely it's just coming back. The red line here is an absolute no-no, as if it gets passed to me there, the Atlas will probably just throw a projection shield, or just hit it in himself, and completely intercept the pass. In order to get it to me, Asher's best play is to throw it up to the orb, where I can then scoot over and get it before the Atlas can get there and move the core up the field. So hopefully you found this one to be a little bit more obvious. Clearly the Vice here doesn't want to hit it down to me. They don't want to hit it to their Juno because the Juno and the Atlas are on the same level. If they hit it up to the Rasmus, then the Rasmus can strike the core easily around the Atlas, which is why you send it up to the Rasmus. This one should have also been simple, but it's a reminder to always make sure that you're shooting your shots away from the opponents. Here we're going to hit it into the green area, bottom right corner of the goal. We can hit a little bit higher than that. The orange area is probably fine, but the Vice likely gets there and covers that. And the red area is absolutely not. So always make sure you're carefully redirecting where it is you're shooting so that you can actually score some goals. Hopefully you got this one. It may seem simple, but in execution, I messed this one up. The Drakkar here is wide open. He found a nice window between the arrow and the Estelle, so make sure you hit it to him. You can see the arrow's walking to intercept that red line, so if you try to shoot this directly at the bumper, the arrow's going to save it, as she does. This passing lane is much more obvious than the prior one, as I am wide open, there's a big window. You just need to hit it right to me here, because if you hit it on the orange line, the Estelle or the Era might be able to intercept it, and the red lines are obvious I'm a solo queue gamer lines. Make sure to avoid these. It's really easy, especially when you're playing by yourself, to just commit to the I can do this, I can power through them. If you have an easy out, make sure you're taking it. This one is a little bit harder than the other ones we've seen. There is only one correct clear path here. It is up through the Ai.Mi turret. Ai.Mi's turret has a little bit of a wind-up period to it, and the projectiles also have to travel. Notably, the first projectile shot by the turret hits Estelle. Therefore, it is no longer present, and the arrow can actually clear up through it. Anything else is going to be detrimental to the arrow and allow the core to probably hit the bumper. So it needs to be up so that you lead the Estelle, as she'll be able to get this off of the top wall, and she'll be able to do something with it where nobody else can get to it. This pass, while it may seem simple, has a lot of complexities to it that I want to discuss here in full. Let's just start with the lines from worst to best. The red line is the no-no line. You cannot pass the core in front of your Ai.Mi here, because the Drakkar will have better positioning on it, and you're setting the Drakkar up for a strike war that he wins 100% of the time. To the same vein, passing it to the Ai.Mi will have similar results, as she'll be in prime range for the Drakkar to win the strike war. Although that one's a little bit more winnable. The green line is the best because it allows the Ai.Mi player to follow the core down and do whatever it is they want with it. Something along the lines of pulling the Drakkar down with them to block any progress made forward. They can then send it back up to the Estelle, who should take the midfield position. Or it allows them to try to block a shot with gun shell with their face and then try to clear the core pass. It gives options. The optional best line is the yellow line here. The yellow line is not something you're really ever going to see in any games, but I think it's definitely something for the community as a whole to start thinking about and considering. Back passes are a lot better than they seem, and it's rare that I see them executed. What does this back pass allow us to do as a team? It allows us to get the core down to the Ai.Mi, where the Ai.Mi has a chance of getting it past the Drakkar, at least a better one. Because the Rasmus can send the core lower to the Ai.Mi, or the Rasmus can just stall and ping pong it for themselves while the forwards get a slightly better position on the game. This works primarily because their team, being Zentaro and Drakkar, are really short range. They have a small area of influence, which allows this type of play to exist. It is worth noting, this type of play is extremely high level, and I think it'll become more commonplace within the following months. This one might be a little tricky to see because you have to pass it to open space here. So the passing lane is there for the Rasmus, it's just not directly to a player, it is instead in front of the Estelle who has abilities up. So you throw it in front of the Estelle, she's going to cast ability, she's going to score. She also probably has enough time to walk up and get there and just kick it in. However, that is unreliable and she should probably use abilities if she has them. Instead, you're going to watch this Rasmus try to solo queue hero it, and I want you to note that nothing comes of it. It's always worth noting these moments where you feel like you can do it and you are the team. Instead, you should be looking to pass in your future games. This one is more of a question of how does the Estelle best set herself up to make any play on this core here. Unfortunately, this isn't a positioning video, but Rasmus is out of position. He should be standing somewhere near the yellow circle. So instead of just passing to him like the Estelle should, she has to do something crazy and she's going to pass to herself. Estelle's a mobile character who has a blink. She also happens to have, I believe, aerials in this game, so she has a slightly longer blink than normal. She might actually even have two of them. The dash enhancements. So she's gonna blink up and pass to herself essentially, which allows her to make a wonderful play here. Well, how did you do? Hopefully you learned something new. In general, be sure that you are always thinking about where you should be hitting the core and why. Acknowledge your mistakes and learn from them. My name is Loven. Thank you for watching. Below in the description you can check out my Twitch channel where I'm happy to answer questions if you come join in on the live chat and help you get your game up. Also check out the Clockwork Mage. He's supposed to be having a goalie positioning video coming up soon. He promises me that, so look out for that. And also make sure you join the coaching Discord. We're always happy to help and we're trying to get this community more educated. I hope you have a good one. Take care till next time.